Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Our topic today we will start with chapter number 2, which is fundamental cost concepts. So basically there are a variety of costs to be considered in engineering economic analysis. For example, we need to evaluate a set of feasible alternatives in our decision makings, such as we have two different projects that we want to evaluate which project that we want to proceed. The example of costs that involve in engineering economic analysis includes cost for initial investments, cost for new construction, cost for modification, the general labours cost. What more is inspection costs, in training costs, even the material handlings costs, and also the general support costs, or what we call as overhead costs. What does it mean by overhead costs? It's actually costs that involve in setting up construction sites, for example, because in a construction project, to be more specific, in a construction site we have a labor cost, we have material costs, but the cost of site office, for example, is not indirectly contributed to the cost of project, cost of the building, for example, cost of infrastructure, but we can say that it's considered as a overhead cost. So overhead cost is include the cost for utilities, maintenance of the site office, and so on. It include the payment of telephone bills, electrical bills. That's what we call as a general support cost or overhead cost. So in this chapter we will describe several cost concepts for classifying and understanding the several type of cost terminology. There's a lot of classification according to the frequency of occurrence, relative magnitudes, and degree of impact on the study. So what we can see here, there's 15 type of costs, but it's not categorized in under one category, or not classified under one category, but into a several category. First one is fixed costs, variable costs, and incremental costs. We'll look at this one is from one magnitude, one perspective. The second category is direct costs, indirect and standard costs. The third, cash costs and book costs. The fourth is sunk costs, opportunity costs, and life cycle costs. The sunk costs, the opportunity cost, and the life cycle cost is independent. But the items that in the yellow dotted circle, this one, this is actually categorized under life cycle cost. For the first category, so you need to firstly understand what is fixed cost, variable, and incremental. First one is fixed cost. It is unaffected by changes in activity levels over a feasible range of operations or capacity or capability available. For example, it is unavoidable cost. For example, it's insurance and taxes, administration, salaries, license fees, and so on. This is we consider is the fixed cost as a constant or unchanging regardless of the level of output or activities. We will look into the simple example to make it more clear for you to understand. And the second one is the variable cost. What we can see here is it is associated with an operation that varies in total with the quantity of output or other measure of activity levels. For example, the cost of material and labor. Simply said, variable cost depends on the level of output or level of activities. The third one is incremental cost. Incremental cost is the additional cost that results from increasing the output of a system by 1 unit. Okay, one of the fundamental principles in engineering economic analysis is that in choosing between competitive alternative, let's say we have two kind of models in choosing equipment. Okay, let's say equipment, we need to decide whether a brand A is better or worth in terms of economic, is more economic than brand B. Okay, let's say you want to buy drill machine, for example. Okay, so we need to compare between two alternatives. So in other way, we will have a situation that we need to compare two options, whether to lease or to buy. Okay, as we learned in the previous chapter about the decision making process, if you want to compare between two alternatives, we need to focus on the differences between the alternative. Okay, not on the costs that are the same. Okay, let's see the examples for the incremental cost. Okay, let's look at this example. Okay, Philip is choosing between model A and model B, which is model B is we have more features, but it's have a higher purchase price. So what incremental cost would Philip incur if he choose model B instead of less expensive model A? Okay, so there's several cost items listed in the tables. We need to decide, or we need to do the judgment. Okay, what does the incremental cost means? Okay, so firstly, we need to compare the differences between model A and model B for every particular cost items. Okay, let's say here we know that model B is more expensive than model A, so we just put here is cost for model B minus model A. Okay, it depends which cost is more expensive. Okay, so model B minus model A, for the purchase price, the differences is about 7,500. This one 1.5 thousand, and here we have minus. Okay, 1,750, and the annual utility expenses is about 800, and disposal cost after useful life is minus 200. Okay, so what we can see here, there's an incremental cost of B. Okay, if you want to buy the model B, this is considered as incremental cost. If you choose model B, okay, this is the amount that you need to pay more if you choose alternative B or model B. Okay, but it's important to notice here that for the cost categories given, the incremental cost of model B have both positive and negative. Okay, so positive incremental cost means that model B costs more than model A for that particular price, particular cost items, and the negative incremental cost means that there would be a savings of cost reductions if model B were chosen instead. Okay, but in this case, because the model B has more features, so the decision not necessarily only based on the cost, okay, but the decision should be considered the benefit offered by the model B as well. Okay, this is what does it mean by incremental cost. Okay, I hope the explanation about the incremental cost make you more clear what does it mean by this terminology. Okay, back to the fixed cost and variable cost. Okay, I want to show you a simple application to represent what does it mean by fixed cost and variable cost. Let's take a simple example. You want to sell a curry puff. So what are the fixed costs that you need to consider, and what are the variable costs? Okay, firstly, we list all the costs that you need to prepare before you start your business. Okay, let's say first, so you need to buy the ingredient such as flour, then you need potato for the fillings, sugar, chili, what more, oil to fry that, okay, onion and so on. So all the ingredients, and then you need to prepare like cooking essentials such as wok or pan, and you need to buy a store, physical store. For example, you need to buy let's say some plastic bag for the packaging. After you list all these items that you need to buy before you start your business, then you can recognize which of the items is considered as a fixed cost and which of the item is considered as a variable cost. Okay, let's see here. Okay, flour, the ingredients, is directly contributed to the output, number of output or number of curry powder that you want to sell, that you want to produce. So if you want to produce 100 pieces and you want to sell about 200 pieces, so the cost that you need to prepare for the ingredient is a variable. It's changeable. Okay, it's depend on the activities or output you want to produce. So this is considered as variable cost. What about the wok, store, tub, and this one? Okay, the cost for this item does not necessarily influenced by the amount of production. If you want to sell 100 pieces of curry puff, or if you want to sell 50 pieces of curry puff, you need to buy all these things. Okay, so we consider this is as fixed cost. Okay, fixed cost. And how about the plastic bag? Is it variable cost or fixed cost? Okay, so this is linked to the variable cost. It depends to the customer that you have. Okay, this is the simple example how to show you what the differences between the fixed and the variable cost. Okay, this is the basic or very fundamental equation that I believe that you're familiar with. Okay, when you look into this is what we can call this is as linear equations. Okay, total cost is equals to variable cost plus fixed cost. Okay, so in this case, the variable cost, the equation or the formula for the variable cost is A minus Q plus FC. Okay, A is referring to the variable cost per unit and Q is the output. So when we talk about the linear equations, so actually you can illustrate this equation into a graph. Okay, so we have two axes x and y as usual. So this is where you need to apply your mathematical knowledge here. Okay, so we have fixed cost here. Okay, this is fixed cost line, fixed cost. Okay, and we have another line. This is actually a total cost equation. Okay, and this is a variable cost. So when you look into the equations, A is actually the slope for this equation. That's why the definition of A is a variable cost per unit. Okay, this is cost, the variable cost here per unit. It depends how many units you produce. Okay, this x-axis is representing the unit of production. So this is the basic knowledge regarding the equation about the total cost, the relationship between the total cost, variable cost, and fixed cost. Let's jump into the example. Okay, let's see what we have here is for mixing 1 meter cube concrete require variable cost of Rm5 and a fixed cost per day is Rm100. So our basic formula is total cost is equals to variable cost plus fixed cost. So what we have here is first information is concrete require variable cost of Rm5, okay, for 1 meter concrete. Okay, so we have A here is the variable cost per unit is Rm5 for 1 meter concrete, and the second information we have from the questions is a fixed cost. So we have a fixed cost equals to Rm100. So very direct questions. So our total cost is VC. VC is A times Q. So we have A is 5, Q plus fixed cost is 100. So it's very simple. So that is the answers for the question A, and the second is estimated production cost for 1000 meter cube of concrete mix in a day. So we have here is Q. So just substitute the value of Q into the equation that you have developed in question A, plus 100, 5,000 plus 100. So you got 5100 for the total cost. Easy peasy. Okay, so the example 2 is quite more complicated than the previous one, but it's also, I guess, is a simple, very simple mathematical solution, because this is just, I guess, if you don't learn what I teach you today, if you understand the concept of mathematics, I believe that you can easily solve these problems. Okay, example 2, the cost to produce 10 shirts is Rm 350 while 600 are required to produce 20 shirts. Okay, you can see the differences here. For cost for 10 shirt is Rm 350, for 20 shirt is Rm 600. Okay, your basic equation is TC is equal AQ plus FC. So for this one, you cannot easily substitute the value provided into that equations. So that's why it is important for you to understand the concept of equations. It's like I represent you in a figure or in a graph form previously. Okay, so if you have this equation, if you have this information, you actually can generate a graph, right? So you have price here, cost here for the y-axis, and you have quantity or unit for the x-axis. So you can draw a graph. 10 shirt, let's say here 10 is 20, you need 350. Okay, but for the 20 shirts, you only need 600 instead of 700. Okay, so you can draw a straight line and get the equation for this linear line. So how to get the equations? You have the differences here, so you can get the A, which is representing the slope of the line. Then you need to find the intersection of the total cost line on the y-axis. Okay, so we have A is 600 minus 350 over, we got here is 20 minus 10, so you will get 25. So now you need to find the intersection of C. Okay, so we're using the similar equation, the similar concept of A. You can find the intersection at y-axis. So you get A is equal to 25 equals to 350 minus C is actually fixed cost. Then we have here 10 minus 0. So now we got fixed cost is equal to 100. So now you already have all the information to substitute into the basic equation plus FC. Total cost is equals to, your E now is 25 and Q plus fixed cost is 100. So this is the linear equation for the shirt production cost. Okay, for the question B, if production increased to 100 pieces shirt for the next month, calculate the total production for the shirts. It's a very simple indirect questions. Okay, so next month you can produce 100 pieces of shirts, or I guess as a missing words here, calculate the cost, the total cost of production for the shirts. Okay, so by using the equation that you already get in question A, just substitute the value of Q. So now you can have the total cost for the 100 shirts is equals to 1,100, 2,600 or 2,600 ringgit Malaysian. Okay, let's go to the more ways to categorize costs. This is another classification of cost terminology. Is direct, indirect, and standard cost. It's very direct definitions. For the direct, is it can be measured and allocated to a specific work activities. Okay, for example, labor costs, material costs, equipment costs, rental fees costs. Okay, it's very direct cost. But for the indirect costs, it's quite difficult to attribute or allocate to a specific output or work activity, but it's usually involve overhead or burden. Just like I mentioned before, I already explained to you what does the overhead means. Okay, so the example here is cost of equipment repair and maintenance. It's not directly contributed to the cost of production, but you need to repair and maintain the equipment to make sure that you can run the project. Okay, so you need the cost. It is what we call is indirect, and not necessarily considered as a direct cost, but it's indirect cost. The third one is the standard cost, planned cost per unit of output. established in advance of production or service delivery. So this the example is control and standardized price rate for a particular job or activities. Okay, when you look into the contract document, okay, you have some list like this. This is an example of list. Okay, on the BQ, bill of quantities, already mentioned or already listed the standard rate for a specific or a particular activities, for a particular materials. What we call this is as a price rate, standard price rate. Okay, but if we use more, but the rate for per unit is fixed, it is standard rate. Okay, let's say for the fuel cost, okay, you have a specific standard rate. If you want to go to the meeting with the clients, or if you want to go to buy some materials for that project, so the rate for the fuel consumption is standard. Okay, we cannot differentiate. If you want to use the you want to spend on a fuel, you go to construction site. It's different if you want to buy a materials. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, you have a standard rate for a certain type of works or a certain type of materials. Okay, this is what we call as direct, indirect, and standard costs. Okay, typical uses of standard costs: estimating future manufacturing costs, measuring operating performance by comparing actual costs per unit with the standard unit cost, and preparing bids requested by customer. Okay, this is what we mean by standard costs. The next category of costs is cash costs and book costs. Okay, a cash cost, a cost that involves a payment of cash result in a cash flow. Okay, it's obviously in a cash flow form. Okay, but the book cost, a cost that does not involve a cash payment. It represents some change in value over a particular period of time. It relates to a depreciation value. Okay, I will give you a short video of explanation for you to more understanding what is the differences, what it does mean by a book cost. Okay, sunk cost is another cost terminology that you need to understand in this to do the engineering economic analysis later. So a cost that has occurred in the past and has no relevance to estimate of future costs and revenues related to an alternative course of action. This is irretrievable consequences of past decision, so it becomes irrelevant in the economic analysis. Okay, it's a simple example. For example, is you have spent an amount of money to buy a flight ticket, let's say, okay, but suddenly you need to cancel the trip because you have an emergency calls. Okay, let's say on that particular date that you is actually need to go to the trip, one of your family members sick, okay, so you cannot proceed your plan. So but you already buy the tickets. Okay, but you cannot get the return of money from the ticket price. No, what we call is the cost that you already spent for the ticket is actually burn. Okay, burns. It's like that. You lost the money. but you cannot get the return. Okay, so this is the example that meant by the definition of sunk cost. Okay, the cost that occurred in the past, you already buy the tickets and has no relevance to estimate of future costs and revenues related to an alternative cost of action, because the action is you need to cancel the trip, but you cannot reverse. Okay, so you cannot retrieve back the money. Okay, so it's actually some amount of money that you already spent, but you cannot get the benefit from it. What we call simply said like that. Okay. Okay, the opportunity cost. The cost associated with an opportunity that is declined. It represents the benefit that would have been received if the opportunity were accepted. Okay, the monetary advantage foregone due to limited resource. For example, consider a student who could earn 20,000 for working during a year, but choose instead to go to school for a year and spend 5,000 to do so. So in this case, the student giving up the opportunity cost to earn 20,000. Okay. From this example, we can easily understood that the terminology is representing that opportunity that you already actually lost. You have the opportunity to get the 20,000 if you work, but you not work. You choose to go to school, and you miss the opportunity of getting 2,000 ringgit, 20,000 ringgit. That's what we call as opportunity cost. Okay, so what have you learned today? At least you can classify each of the following cost item as mostly fixed or variable. Okay, does it raw materials is a fixed or variable? Direct labor, office rent, insurance, and administrative salaries, property taxes, interest borrowed money, and utilities. Try to differentiate between these fixed or variable costs. Okay, are you ready to test your understanding? So be prepared for the quiz coming soon. Thank you for today, and we will continue our next chapter next week. Until next week.